From Georgia, Mr. Loudermilk is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate all of the witnesses being here. Apologize that I wasn't here for the earlier testimony, but we also have Homeland Security issues going on that I'm doing the ping pong between the committees. But prior to coming to Congress, I spent 30 years in the IT industry. 20 of that time I had my own business. And a good portion of our business was going into smaller utility systems and helping them automate. So I have some background in this, predominantly smaller municipal co-op systems to where we would put fiber optics into the city to tie the different SCADA systems together, pump stations, substations, et cetera, so they can more effectively monitor, getting more to a smart grid. During that time, many of those smaller operations saw the value of bringing in revenue, especially in small utilities, of selling the interconnectivity to businesses that had multiple locations within their jurisdiction. That also led to bringing in high-speed internet, which allowed them to connect and sell internet services on the same backbone, the same infrastructure that was also running their devices. Now, of course, we put in a lot of technology to segregate those networks, but at the same time, they also saw the functionality of being able to monitor and manage and respond without having to be in the office to an incident that happened within the utility system through the use of the internet. So as we were trying to implement these new technologies to allow them to be more efficient in operating their utility, and many of those provide electricity throughout their cities or their area of responsibility. It did help a lot, but then there was the concern that we had of someone from the outside being able to get in. And so what we would do is we would do a lot of research, and one of the things that we did not have was an approved products list that we could go to, that the government had said, all right, if you use this type of gateway, use this firewall, use this type of filter, then we know it'll be secure. So we did a lot of research. We went to a lot of vendors, and we would get what we believed was the most secure, put that into place, and in most cases, we were under contract to maintain it, make sure the security updates were done, the patches, et cetera, et cetera. The next progression was to then put in the other elements of the smart grid for meter reading and all this. So some of the things we started looking at were points of access, points of failure, points of vulnerability, which grew exponentially once we started adding the more technology. In a previous committee, I brought up the lack of an approved products list that vendors such as myself or these smaller electric utilities can go to. That has standards, equipment standards, standards of practice, operation, et cetera. Now, I understand the Department of Energy is working on that, and I applaud that effort. But I do believe, and I know that there is a lot of vulnerability accessing the grid, you may say, through smaller electric utility systems. Some of those that we put equipment in, we went out and spent a lot looking at the security aspect of it to make sure that they could operate securely. Because of budget cuts, many of them would cut our contract and manage it themselves. And then some of them would actually go and buy parts off of eBay because they were cheaper. But I would try to emphasize to them there's a reason that part is on eBay. It's probably because it has been discontinued for a security reason. Can any of you that would like to comment on where we are, where we're going, and the need to get to, if you feel that there is a need to have a standard set of standards for equipment, for upgrade, for maintenance, and operation with these smaller utilities as well as large?
Well, I'll speak as a large utility. I can't speak for a small utility. That would not be accurate for me to do.
You may be able to opine as far as the vulnerability, how vulnerability of the small utilities affect the larger utility.
Well, I'll try to answer your question directly, though, regarding standards associated with equipment, software, technologies. I think there certainly has to be some level of verification, validation of equipment. To the extent that you could create a universal standard for every type of equipment that sits inside of a network, I think it would be very difficult, and the question is who would monitor and manage that? That is the challenge, and it ranges from software to hardware. I do think there are some validation points, though, that you can put in. Do you have, as you're building software or you're building equipment, a method of configuring it so that it could be personal to the company versus a standard set of passwords that are set in a piece of software, as an example? Those are things that you could do to design into the technology. As it relates to the vulnerability between a small utility, municipal or not, we work together very well in the industry, between our industry association, EEI, groups like EPRI, who do research for us. And so I would tell you that there's very little distinction about what the expectations are on a small utility versus a large utility.
Thank you for the question. I'd offer this perspective. Right now, vendors are offering equipment with as much flexibility as they can, with as much functionality as they can, and that's adding to the complexity. If, as a sector, there was work done on how do I minimize the functionality to really what I need, that the valve only opens and closes as fast as I need for an emergency response, and that sensors on the pipe managing flow or only have the fidelity for managing the flow. As we reduce that complexity, initially that would cost more because you're asking for something that's different. But as an industry, as they worked on reducing the complexity and trying to find components that did the minimum functionality required to manage within an industrial control system, I think there'd be some benefits to that.
Is there currently a rating system or an evaluation that is used as far as how secure a utility is in their operation?
In terms of vendor equipment?
The whole footprint, the entire topology. Is there a method that an independent organization or the government can come in and evaluate and give some type of security rating?
Yes, there is. The CIP standards, the Critical Infrastructure Protection Standards, are a set of standards that originated in 2005. We're on version 5 right now, and they baseline the transmission system and the security around that through those standards, and then they are auditable. And to the extent there is remediation associated with those audits, they're managed accordingly. FERC administers those through NERC.
Okay. Does the gentleman yield back?
I'm out of time, Mr. Chairman, so I will yield back the time I don't have remaining.
All right, the gentleman